Back in my day, we didn't have problems with raiders. We just shot them all on the spot. Hey guys, this is Berkeley's coming at you with the how-to for the Minuteman Naval HQ. A couple of things that didn't transfer over. I'm just kind of filling them in now before we go through and show you the circuit on how to do the door. So just basically filling in the gaps here. Got some walls that didn't go over, and we're gonna fill in the 90-degree curves here with the cement. I thought it was fairly obvious what went there, but you know, I like to be thorough, so just in case. So, and those were the only walls that didn't transfer on mine. So here's the circuit, and I'm going to put this schematic on the Nexus so you can see it. And then what I'm doing here is a proof of concept to show that the circuit does work in the build. So got all my components lying out here. Got all my logic gates. They're all NAND gates. And remember, the NANDs will basically, they will transmit power if only one input has power. So that's why we're doing two. The lasers actually, this kid walks through and trips up my circuit and then stares at me like, what? What are you going to do about it? Can't shoot him, or otherwise the other settlers return hostile. Okay, so power to laser, and then power to the red side, and then the black side is what we actually hook up to the gates, and then the gates will swing open because that's actually on for them, is open. So then we'll use the delayed on switches, and what we'll do is we'll actually hook the delayed to the power pylon. So wow. So once you got the pylon to the delay goes to the red side, and power goes to the red side. So both will go to red side, power and delay. Then the black side will go to the gate. The gate will swing closed there. And then once you trip the circuit, it'll power the first one, and then the delayed on will take to the second. The third delay will hook to the second delay, and then so on and so forth. So the power will go to red as well, and then that will power the third circuit. So your delay is a cascade effect. So the first delay talks to the second delay talks to the third. That's how you get that cascade effect. So that's delay number 2 right there. I'm hooking it to the delay number 3. Delay number 3 will go to that logic circuit there, and then logic circuit will go to power, and then logic circuit will go to a fourth arm. And so the cascading delay effect is what makes the real cool opening animation. So we'll go ahead and bring the laser down here and kind of show it off a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4. And once you get more than 4, it actually exceeds the timeout on the laser unless you change it. The laser respawn can take as long as you want when you hook it up to a terminal. But if you hook a terminal up to the gates and change their response, or the delays, if you change their response time to 1/4 of a second or 1/8 of a second, you can get as many gates in as you want before the laser resets. Okay, so now let's go ahead and get this in practice on the actual build. So I'm going to move all of these console decorations out of the way. Now you'll want to scrap the lasers because they don't transfer properly, and you'll also want to scrap all the delayed switches. Even though they say they're delayed, they actually just transfer as power pylons. So we'll have to actually put those back into the game. So just kind of moving everything out of the way. The logic circuits and the arms themselves transfer just fine, so you don't have to scrap those and rebuild those. So here I am. I'm going to be bringing in some of my new needed components. So we'll start with the laser tripwires, and again, one of the required mods is the automatic laser tripwire, so you don't have to reset it every time you walk through. Let's kind of set those up, and then we're going to need new delayed switches. Now I use the Place Anywhere mod to scooch out my arms here, and I connect them to both the conduit above and to the black part of the logic switch. Just kind of scooch it out there, connect it, and then highlight it and hit your backspace key, and it'll put it right back where it was. Not that these were aligned perfectly to begin with. They really weren't. If you want to make them more perfect, be my guest. I got them as good as I wanted them. You could probably spend hours aligning these up if you really wanted to. So again, scooch it out. I just highlighted it and hit the 2 button on my number pad to bring it out, hooked it to the conduit and the circuit, and then good to go. Now, once you get to the 6 and above, you'll actually need to bring the logic circuit over to hook it up, because it won't go through the wall, obviously. So you can bring it over, hook it up, and then move it back. And it's a little tricky, but it does eventually snap into place. So again, bring the circuit over, scooch the arm out, hook it to the conduit and the circuit, and then take the circuit back to where it was. Or if you want to set it up somewhere else, be my guest. Once you get to the last one, then you'll want to start hooking positive power to everything. So, and that's not positive as in affirmation, that's just it's charge. So hook up the lasers to power, again, as we saw in the schematic. Kind of hook up all of the circuits to power. You can do this all at once. It makes it much quicker and a little bit tidier too. And for some reason this box was jumping around on me, so I just was like, forget it, I'll put it on the floor. So, and again, one of the required mods was the generator fuse box, and that's what I'm using here, is a generator fuse box. Produces 100 power. Don't think I needed that much, but whatever, better safe than sorry, right? And then so we'll bring over our power pylon, and we'll hook the lasers up to this one to create the second power circuit. And what this does is it lets the logic circuit know that, oh hey, one of my inputs is turned off, now it's time to stop generating power. It's kind of wired in reverse, because those lasers, when the laser actually goes off, it kicks power on. So that's why I had to use the logic circuits to finish this. It's kind of backwards from what you would think it would be. So, and I number the pylons as I go so I can keep organized. And it may seem like extra steps. It may seem like unnecessary work, but trust me, it's not. We're working with a lot of components here. It's good to number them. So the delay switches not only hook up to the logic circuits, but they also hook up to the light boxes. If you want that effect, I'm showing you how to do it. Obviously, you don't have to. But you're right there. It's only one extra wire. It's not that hard to do. So hooked up delay switch number 1 to the first light box. Delay switch to delay switch to create the cascade effect. Delay switch to light box. Delay switch to logic switch. Wash, rinse, repeat. So I'm going to grab number 3 here. Grab number 2. Number 2 needs to go to its logic switch. Almost forgot that. That would have been... And it's another reason to number these. When you test it, after you've got everything hooked up, the arms are going to react whether or not they're hooked up. So if you've got an arm that isn't moving and you've numbered all your pylons right, you know exactly where you're missing a wire or where the problem may be, and you may need to check it out. So 2 to 3, and then the corresponding light boxes. And then I just kind of moved all the pylons over here because I was like, oh, I'm sick of them being in the way. So you're going to need to keep moving these around because you're going to run out of space. And you can see as I switch the delayed switches into place, the arms are going to swing open. So once you've got your final one and you're walking through your web of wires, you'll test your circuit and you'll get something like this. It's always going to do that the first time. I don't know why. Walk through it a second time and you'll actually start to get the cascade open effect, but it's really slow, and then the laser timeout turns it back on, and then all of them swing shut without them opening. So that's where you need your terminal. You have to adjust the delay time. So go ahead and switch your delay switch time to either an eighth or a quarter of a second. I like a quarter of a second, but you can do an eighth of a second. It opens really fast. And then walk through your laser, and you'll get the nice cascade effect. So then we'll want to tidy up our workshop, so I went ahead and put all the delay switches in. And kind of creates a cool effect when you're done with it. It looks like a big old circuit. And then we'll want to wire up, obviously, our lights. So I've got them going vertically. So circuit 1 is the first row, circuit 2 is the second row, circuit 3 is the third row, blah, blah, blah. I think it only went up to 5 or 6, can't remember. And it's moving too fast for me to count. So once these are all hooked up, go ahead and take the floor out and move it to wherever you want, and that's where the conduit goes over under the hallway. Now here's a fun little tidbit for you. The conduit didn't transfer either. Apparently the game treats conduit as wire, and while it animates it, there's actually nothing in there. So I think conduit, all it is a skin for wire, as far as how the game treats it. So you'll have to replace all the conduit. I thought I was going to save everybody some time by wiring up so much conduit, and then all they'd have to do is connect the conduit to the conduit, but apparently I did not, because that's not how the game treats conduit. It's just a skin for wire, apparently. So the connectors work. You don't have to replace the connectors, but all the tubes that go from connectors, apparently the game just sees those as wire, or it puts a wire inside of them. I'm not sure how it treats it, but in any case, sorry guys, you are going to have to go replace all the conduit, and I actually show a little bit of that here coming up. We're gonna wire up these lights real quick. I'm going to show you how to do the arms on the other side of the door, and then we'll show you the conduit after that. Just wiring up everything here. Alright, so put this wall back in once you've got all your lights wired up. And it's a bit tricky, but it'll eventually snap back in. And then down here is, you'll want to cover that up as well. So make it look like one solid wall. One big happy family. And then go ahead and move that out of the way. Put a board down here. And this is how we're going to wire up the other side of the hallway. So those are all the conduits that are coming over. And you just match them up best as you can. This one's a little easier. You only got one thing to wire in, so wire in the first one to the first conduit. Hit the backspace key, it'll go back. Second one to the second conduit, and fortunately the conduit on this circuit's pretty easy to replace, because it's the conduit that goes to the arms is above the hallway. The conduit that goes to the lights is below the hallway. There's no clipping of objects. There's no conduit that's going through cement, so those ones are pretty easy to replace. So here's how to wire up the conduit. Since everything's going through this wire, you'll want to put a small placekeeping brick there, so you can move that one back. And then move your power circuit back up there and delete your placekeeper. Okay, so I've got all the conduit that wires the other buildings on the outside of this one, but obviously we need to replace the poles. So if you can grab the poles without moving the floor, great. If not, just take one out, delete it, replace it. And then once you do that, boom, magic, everything lights up. So I got another conduit going this way. And for those of you who are wondering, no, conduit going through and clipping through floors and cement walls does not break immersion. That's how conduit works. So it's not really a cheat there to clip it through anything. So up here for the Armory circuit, I'm just going to kind of show you this real quick. This is pretty simple. It's not as complicated as the hallway, because it's all activated by a switch. So again, here we have delayed switches hooked up to light boxes. And I'll show you one side wiring. You're basically just going to want to wire it the same way on the other side. And I have light bulbs that are connected to the top circuit, but you can't wire through them, so you want to go through and actually delete all the light bulbs before you wire it up, and then you can add the light bulbs in later if you want them. I think it's kind of cool to have some actual illumination behind the light boxes, because while they do light up, they don't really cast a lot of light. So I like to help them out a little bit by adding light bulbs behind them. And so you just kind of, obviously, I've only got 3 circuits here. You can add more if you want. If you want 1 circuit for every row of lights, cool, be my guest. It's just a simple matter of adding more delay on switches. I've got 3, so I run rows of 2, and then the middle row is a row of 3. But that's just because I didn't want to put any more in. So upstairs, this conduit, just replace it. And the way this works is, you'll see there's the conduit that comes from the ground, which I'm going to address in a second here, actually comes up, powers all the way up to the switch that's on the other side of this wall that you're about to see, and then the switch has to make the jump. So that's how the circuit works. The conduit connects to that switch, and then the switch will split the power. One goes to our circuit, and then the other one is already powered by the generator downstairs. So you want to replace all this conduit. Move this wall out of the way. And then you can just hook that up. That's how I'm getting the power armor display to power up. That's how it's illuminated, is that switch that's a little bit higher up. That's what's illuminating all of our power armor displays. So let's kind of replace all the conduit through here, and got to move a lot of walls out of the way, but fortunately the conduit's pretty easy to replace. It snaps in real nice, and you don't have any problems there. So just kind of go through and look at the piece that you're about to replace before you delete it, so you know which one to put back in its place. And then the power emitters that I have wired up, you have to put those in last. So if you're coming across a place that has an emitter, just delete the emitter and then put in the pipe and the conduit, and then you can put the emitter back in afterwards. It'll snap right in over the top of the conduit. So there we go. That one's connecting there. Move this wall so you can hook up your send there. Now there are vertical conduits, but I believe it's a mod, so that's why I didn't use vertical conduits. And it looks like it doesn't matter anyway, because like I said, the conduits aren't transferring. So even if I would have put those in, I don't think it would have saved us any time. So I just kind of did connecting the different floors through wire. So let's go down and hook this up. Make sure that's connected. Yep, it's connected. Replace this conduit, otherwise I'm doing it all for nothing. Go ahead and hook it up to the generator. Voila, we've got power. It's good. Everything's lit. All right, let's rebuild our room here. Put the floor back in. Move that. Scooch all of the delay circuits up so they sit behind the wall real nice. Now, obviously, this center wall doesn't have anything to grab onto, and I'm just now figuring that out. So I'm going to have to create a small guide for it. And so it doesn't look like that wants to hook. Sometimes you can get these single space, real skinny cement walls to help you out in placing things. You can use them as guides. Sometimes you can't. So but in this case, I was lucky enough that it worked that way. So I put the big wall in, and then I was able to get that backsplash wall in. And then you just fill out the exterior of the building. And there you go. Complete your floors. Hop on over. And the reason that it's important to get that center wall just slightly out of sync is that little dip back there. So you can see our switch works. We flip it off and flip it on, and there we go. Our delay circuits are working, and the illumination is coming in just nice. So once everything's all said and done with the hallway, you'll get this effect.